today is September the 6th, 2013. We graduated in June of '66, and then we went on to, or I went on to Kent State University. Because I couldn't go to college, I had to go to Kent. And Georgianne went to Otterbein, which is the city that headquarters the National Women's Christian Temperance Union. I was the MC at their homecoming. This is two kids from Kent State University just taking over Otterbein. They had these wonderful floats that each class put together a float for the parade, and they were very elaborate things. And for some reason, the freshmen had no clue that they really should steal the mascot off the senior class homecoming float and hide it somewhere and do other nasty things during homecoming. So Danny and I had to take care of that for them as well. And we also broke into the bell tower and tied rags around the clapper on the bell so that it wouldn't ring when it was supposed to ring during the homecoming festivities. Instead of this beautiful bell, it would clunk. And for some reason, George was campused for about 3 weeks after that visit. And then the next year, she transferred up to Kent State University so that we could be better friends. But the '66 bus, now that was a car. We took that car all over the country. It got us everywhere we ever wanted to go, and it never got us back. We blew the engine. I'm sleeping in the back, and Tom Brands was driving, and he got gas and forgot to put the oil in. And because we had put a little bed in the back of it, and as we're driving down on the way back, I was awakened to the loud noise of a piston rod breaking. But it would still run. And so we got it into Des Moines, Iowa. And Des Moines, Iowa was having the Iowa State Fair. And we pulled into a U-Haul place and said, I want to rent the smallest vehicle you can rent me with a tow bar. And they said, well, the smallest vehicle we can rent you with a tow bar is a 22-foot truck. And I said, oh shoot, I can put this thing in the back of a 22-foot truck. And the guy says, well, yeah, you could. You might have to flatten the tires a little bit, but you can get her in there. I said, okay, where's there a loading ramp? And he says, well, it's down at the Des Moines Fair. So we rent the truck and we drive to the Des Moines Fair. And as we're going in with the truck and the VW bus coming behind it going clatter, 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 there's this big old fat boy in bib overalls who is not going to let us in. He says, no, you have to pay to get in. I said, no, I don't have to pay. I just want to go over to that loading ramp, put that VW bus in the back of this U-Haul, and then we will be fine and gone. I'm not going to the fair. He says, well, I ain't moving. I said, well, yes, you are, and I hit it. And so as just before we ran into this guy, he jumped off to the side. We have it in the back of the truck, and we have it closed, and we see this big old fat boy with the bib overalls coming up with a whole bunch more big old fat boys with bib overalls. And we decided, okay, maybe we better get out of here and we'll go back to the U-Haul place and they'll have something to pump the tires up with and jack this thing in place. So we're speeding back to the U-Haul place and we see the U-Haul guy coming back toward us. He's going to meet us at the Des Moines Fairgrounds and make sure everything's okay. And we said, let's go catch it. So we did a U-turn through a used car dealer. Now, I don't know if you remember the old used car dealers, but they always had these light bulb strings hanging across the light with just bare bulbs hanging on it. And it was just low enough that the top of the U-Haul truck caught every one of them. So as we're flying through this parking lot, it's going bam, 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 bam. We popped every one of those bulbs. And there was nothing we could do about it at that point, and I wasn't buying them new bulbs, so we kept going. So we finally get believe it or not, this is my first car. We finally get the tires pumped up, and we've got the U-Haul strapped in place, or the VW bus strapped in place in the back of the U-Haul. And now it's 11 o'clock at night. And Tom France had to be back to work the next morning or he was going to lose his job. So we're going to drive all night to get back to the greater Cleveland area from Des Moines, Iowa. And so there's 4 of us packed in the front of a U-Haul truck. Only 3 people sit on the bench. So George is on the floor and she's asleep. And I'm asleep and Marty's asleep and Tom is driving and Tom is asleep. And I wake up to the clatter of the little stakes with the reflectors on them on the side of the road going pop, 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 and yelled, and Tom jerked, and we only got about a couple hundred feet into the cornfield. So that's my first car, and it was wonderful. It even had a little flower on it because we were flower children at the time. We were quite the hippies. It was great fun. When you come out of undergraduate school with sociology and psychology, what do? Plus, I graduated in December of 1969. The Vietnam War was at its absolute peak, and my national lottery number in the first lottery for draft was 7. So I was ticketed to go, and I didn't tell the draft board that I had graduated early. They weren't expecting me to graduate till June. And so it's January of 69. No, it was before Christmas. I'm going around saying, okay, I need a job until June. I stopped at the Cuyahoga County Welfare Department and figured out with a degree in social work and psychology, I could get a job there. And the lady who interviewed me says, we will hire you, but you have to give us a 1-year commitment. And I said, ma'am, I would love to give you a 1-year commitment, but as soon as the draft board finds out I'm out of college, they're going to send me to Vietnam. And she said, son, this is a draft-deferred job. And I smiled and said, exactly, where do you want me to sign this 1-year commitment? So I stumbled into avoiding the Vietnam War and stumbled into my first career as a social worker. Never took a child from the home that I didn't try to keep in the home, including we had a 13-year-old girl that had been kept in the basement and fed a can of beans daily and had to use the drain in the basement for her toilet facilities. When we picked her up, she weighed 76 pounds. Put her into intensive care in the hospital, got her beefed back up, sent all kinds of professional talent in to work with her parents. And when she was healthy and I recommended to the juvenile judge that she be put back in the home, he asked if I needed to be institutionalized. We did in fact put her back in the home under very tight supervision. Unfortunately, I never touched base with her after she graduated from high school, but I did see her all the way through high school. Even after I left the welfare department. But she grew up to be a very healthy young lady, as opposed to bouncing from foster home to foster home and growing up to be what children who bounce from foster home to foster home grow up to be. Life is too short not to keep moving on. No matter what the adversity is that you face, take the next step and the next step after that. And as long as you keep moving forward, sooner or later you'll get the adversity far enough behind you that it won't be quite as painful. And probably definitely the biggest adversity Georgianne and I have faced in our lives is when we lost our daughter Courtney. Which clearly was not a good experience. But that same thing had to come to play. We still had 2 children at home. I certainly will tell you that there is an afterlife, that there is something bigger and greater beyond us, and that when our loved ones go on there, they're still able to look back and intervene in our lives, because she does it all the time, and she does it for her siblings as well. It's kind of nice having a guardian angel. Kind of hard getting one, but awfully nice to have. So that we could go snorkel in the Mediterranean. And that's the first time Georgianne found out it was possible to see underwater. That was a bad thing. We got home from that trip and were faced with a winter in Ohio, which are cold and miserable, by the way. So in order to get through that winter in Ohio, Georgianne signed us up for scuba diving classes. Well, I just make up a story. And that just drove George crazy. You know, oh, we're going out to this really great steamer. It's got boilers on it. She says, it's a schooner. It's got masts. So she started keeping a journal on the boat. And in the journal, we would put a picture of the vessel before it sank so that people could see it. And if we had any imagery of it underwater, we'd put that in there, and we'd say where it was built and when it went down and why it sunk and what happened. And after we kept that journal for a few years, we took some friends of ours out diving, Dave and Annette Sewell. And Dave's flipping through it and said, "You have to publish this." So we said, "Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. We ought to do that." But we knew a couple of guys who really should have published books on Great Lakes shipwrecks, and said, "Let's make sure we're not treading on their feet first." So I called Jim Pasker, who was the one guy for sure. And I said, "Jim, are you ever going to write a book?" And he said, "No, I'm not going to write a book." He says, "So if I write one, you're not going to be upset?" He says, "Mike, you don't have it in you to write a book." So I said, "Okay, never say that to me." So we decided we would put that out in book form, and it took us about 9 months to actually get it to where we could publish it. And that became our original book called Erie Wrecks. There are so many adventures out there to be had, and so many things I've never done that we're going to spend the rest of our life doing them.